the Reverend Alton McGriff. Alton, welcome.
Welcome, Alton. Hey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah. How y'all doing today?
Doing good.
We are blessed.
I enjoyed your
I know
panel
we're
this
getting ready to hear a
morning.
message from you.
I didn't know I was preaching. Oh boy, I wasn't ready. Let me get my preaching voice. Yeah.
Okay, preach, guys. All right, Alton. Alton, you can have your way.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I am Alton McGriff, Reverend McGriff. I pastor in San Francisco, California. Pastor of the Great Missionary Temple CME Church and the Great Bell Chapel CME Church. So today I want to talk about mindfulness and leadership and start out with a discussion really talking about the idea and the thought of leading without burning yourself out. Leading without burning yourself out. Leading that is interesting concept and conversation that many of us face in our lives, whether you're in ministry, whether you're in the boardroom, wherever you may be, the idea that running on empty and living on empty. So I want us to talk about, so first I'm gonna start out with a story. I want you to follow me now to the story. This is a personal story. This is about me. Picture this. It is 12 o'clock. I've preached twice. I've greeted folk. I've served folk. I've been there for people. And in the midst of that, at the end of my sermon, at the end of my preaching, at the end of service, something felt off. Something felt off that it was like my spirit, my energy, my mental was gone. I was not able to greet folk after service. And I found myself sitting on the back row, laying down of the church, being cared for by others because I was completely empty. That was a wake up call for me because it was a point to a point that I couldn't even make it to my house. I couldn't make it to my car. I couldn't to do what I like to do, to laugh and to enjoy and people. I was not able to do any of that because I was tired. I was not feeling well because I was living and trying to perform on empty. And as I was laying there in the back of the church, lights off, and encouraging everyone to go home while I get some rest and fill myself up to see if I need to go to the hospital, I was wondering to myself, is this really how it's supposed to be? Is this how leadership is supposed to be, where I go until my body, my mind, and my spirit says I can't go anymore? Now, I'm not sure if you ever been there, whether it's being a mother or a father, whether it's being a person who's a CEO or working for a company. You ever been to a place where you're empty, you don't have anything left, and that is where I was, and it was a wake up call for me. How do I sustain myself for the long journey? How do I get to a place to understand and to move in the direction that I feel that God has for me? And so I thought about the scripture, do not grow weary in well doing, for in due season you shall reap if we faint not. And I thought about that, growing weary in well doing. And so too often our well doing lead to the aspect of performing and not really living according to our purpose. So today, as I think about that time, that was a tough time for me. I didn't have to go to the hospital, but I did go get checked up, and a doctor gave me all kinds of things just to make sure I was okay. But the root of it was I was just burnt out because I wasn't taking care of myself. I allowed myself to be burnt out because I'm glad to be here today to talk about these things because in leadership, oftentimes we get into the idea that we must perform, we must get into a place. And I've learned that in the idea that we must perform, sometimes we lose the purpose and lose the thought of what we are supposed to do to be a whole in our lives. And it's interesting because when we get to that space of being burnt out, a lot of times it leads us to a crisis of leadership. Because this idea of being burned out is not a new idea, and everyone talks about that. But I want to help us to understand in the midst of ministry, in the midst of life, that too often one of the crises we face is the crisis of being a martyr. We fall into that trap of martyrdom, that we feel, that we convince ourselves that if we're not exhausted, if we're not tired, then it's then we're not doing. If we're not giving, our all in all till we can't go anymore, that if we're not depleted, then we're not doing enough. It's one thing when we work out and you push those weights and yes, you get tired and you build muscle. But in our life and with our purpose, we have to be mindful of that we are not the martyr. Because we're called to be living sacrifices, but that means we have to, in our mind, renew ourselves because Jesus already was the martyr for us. So we have to understand within our purpose, it's not about the performance, that we don't perform because our identity should not be tied to our performance. Another trap that we fall into is compassion fatigue. Oh, yeah, yeah. Because if we're not sacrificing ourselves, then we are taking on and carrying the pain, the anxiety, the sadness of everyone else, and we're not learning how to put it down. We're not learning how to put it down. If you think about the process of what it means to carry everyone's burden, it's not our goal to carry. Our goal is to walk along and walk alongside, to point people to health, to point people to holistic, as we point people to where they can find the goodness of life and life more abundantly, not to take on their thing, their stuff, their pain, their issues. So I want us to understand that we have to know that we're not supposed to carry everybody else stuff. That's not our job. Our job is to help people to know what it means and how to throw some of these things off. And it starts with us, because we are not the Messiah. We are not the one that came to die for people's sins, but we have to know that we have the ability to give ourselves strength and hope, to know that we're pointing and striving towards that which gives us life, that which gives us hope, that which gives us peace. So even understand, even Paul understood that sometimes we plant, the others water, but God gives the growth. And that's how we have to point people in anxiety to know that there is a space, whether it's by prayer, support, and all these things helps us to be who we are as whole. And as leaders, we have to understand the idea that no, we're not here to carry everyone else's burdens. No, we're not here to be the martyr. No, we're not here to be the Messiah. And know that one thing that can trip us up sometimes is when we have all these things, then we get into the habit of living in anxiety. We get in the habit of going from problem to problem. It's like, if there is no problem, then I have no purpose. If there is no issues, then we get anxious. Like, no one's calling me. No, we don't have to do this. We don't have to do that. What's going on? And we don't understand how to live in a space of peace, because again, our identity has become on our performance. And if we're not performing, then who are we? Why can't we just be people of God? Why can't we just be the children of God, to be who God has called us to be in that space, whether we are performing or not, to know that being anxious is yes, it can push us to action, but living in that anxiety, or living in that fear, living in that I have to, I must, will put us in a place that we're not thinking with a sober mind. We're thinking with a mind of scarcity, to say that if I'm not around, if I'm not moving, then I am not enough. I am not here. Now I'm questioning my identity. But God didn't call us here to perform. But God called us here to be who God called us to be, to produce the fruit. And a lot of times we get that producing fruit and performing together. So these are some of the things I want us to look at today, to really think about that we are not the martyr. We're not all here to carry everyone else's anxiety, fear, doubt. We're not called to be the Messiah. There's already one. We're not called to go from problem to problem to problem, but we're called to live in a holistic and healthy relationship with who we are and whose we are. So I want us to take an idea to look at what does healthy mindfulness and healthy leadership, what does that look like in our lives? What does that look like? It looks like being a steward of self, being a good steward of self, because your life has been entrusted to you by God. Your life has been entrusted you not to burn yourself out, but your life has been entrusted you to shine, but not being burnt out. And there's a difference, because we will burn, and then when we can't go, and then we get upset because they don't found somebody else to replace us because we burnt out, we're mentally fatigued, mentally well. But when we are called to be stewards of self, and what does that look like? Well, if the Bible says to love the Lord your God and then love your neighbor as yourself, why are we giving more love, more grace, more support to everyone else, but we forget as yourself? So as the steward, as the temple of God, we must understand that our bodies, our soul is not disposable, but it's something that we must care for. And so we have to reframe and redefine what it means to produce, and what is the purpose, what is the goal, what is the mission. The mission is not to burn yourself out, but the mission is to shine bright. So, but also we have to understand that we must come from a place of healthiness, that we must understand that our identity before our productivity, to remember that, yes, Jesus performed miracles, Jesus preached good sermons, Jesus healed folk, but my favorite place is when God spoke and said, "This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased." It wasn't the miracles. It was I am pleased because you're living and you're going towards the purpose that I have called for you. And so I want us to understand, if God can love us even before we perform, if God can love us even after we perform, we must understand our purpose and what God has called us to be, so we don't put our whole identity and self in our performance. Yes, you preach a good sermon. Yes, you go and feed the sick. Yes, you go and do all these things. Yes, you go into the boardroom. Yes, you go and represent down at City Hall. Yes, you do all these things. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself, then it doesn't matter. Because the legacy is, oh, they burnt themselves out. The legacy is, oh, they went till they couldn't go no more. Now who's next? But to understand that God called us to be healthy, to be whole, that we must love ourselves, and understand that as we love our neighbor and give grace, peace, support to our neighbors, we must do the same to ourselves. Or you end up like me on the back pew of the church after you preach and everyone's gone home, and you wonder, how did I let myself get burnt out? How did I not take care of what God has given me, my body, my mind, and my spirit? What does that look like? So we must understand. And in order for us to understand that, you cannot lead when you're empty. If your light's gone, how can you shine? If your cup is empty, and it's a cliche, they always say you can't pour from an empty cup, but how can you lead when you're empty? And too often we get the idea that if we can perform it, we can fake it. Faking it does not work, because people can feel it. If people have discernment, people can feel, oh, it's time for them to get rest. And people say, Pastor, get rest. Leader, get rest. Go get some peace. And then you say, no, I got to perform. I got to perform. What's the purpose? What are you looking for in your life? So I want us to understand today that as you think about these crises and these things and redefining these things, it looks different in leadership when we replace performing with purpose. Because then we start to assess, what are we doing? And why are we doing it? And yes, I might enjoy doing it, but I don't need to do it today. Or maybe if it's someone to help me to fill in, to be in the space where I can be healed and be made whole. Because even Jesus, after he said, y'all go, I'm gonna go get some rest and peace. Y'all go ahead. Let me get some rest and peace. And in our lives, we have to have that same model of understanding that to be healthy and to be whole is getting that peace and knowing that I have to be a good steward of self, of family, of my finances, all these, because all these things, when our light's not shining. Because have you ever had that restful weekend and you wake up, you so energized and going? That's because you took time to rest. And if we can make that a habit every day, and we're going to talk about some mindless techniques for us to get into the space. Because as a pastor, I also work in hospice. I'm a hospice chaplain. So, and I've seen what's like when persons live their life and they burn themselves out and they get to an age and they say, well, what was it all for? But if we can have a balance of purpose, performance, but purpose to know who God is and why do we do what we do, starts with a mind thing, starts with the spirit to help us to know who God is and what God can do. Because we need to, as we're reminding others to be healthy, we ourselves must be healthy. And so mindfulness, it starts not just in the mind, but it starts in our bodies, in our diets, in our everyday way of how we think, how we believe. I mean, I was, wake up in the morning, my mind stayed on Jesus. I'm like, what does that mean? But when you wake up worried about all these things, when you wake up concerned and wake up fearful, it can weigh down on your spirit, your body, and your mind. But you can wake up with the hope to know that God is with us, with the hope to know that there is something better, the hope to know that this is the day that the Lord has made. And we shall rejoice and be glad in it. And one of the ways that I'm getting better in doing this is taking a Sabbath. Now I know there's always an argument, is the Sabbath on a Saturday or Friday evening or Sunday morning? When is the Sabbath? I say for me in my life, I don't rest on Sundays. But I've learned that a good Thursday, because I've done Bible study, my sermon is mostly done already. I have time to spend with the family and time to be present, time to be peace, time to relax. That's my Sabbath. My Thursdays is my place of peace. My Thursday is my place to know, because I know my relationship with God. So I'm not caught up on the law. I'm not caught up on when it's supposed to be. I'm caught up knowing that as a leader, I have to take time to say, hey, today is my day. My Thursday is my day. My Thursday is my time. I get my good book reading in. I get my good music in, some good jazz, or some good gospel, or even some Manhattans, whatever it may be, to give me that peace to know that this is my time of rest. So here's what I want us to do. I want us to take a moment right now, because one of the things in life we forget to do is breathe. Because mindfulness can help us to center ourselves in knowing that all the stuff that we worried about, we think about the past, all the stuff that we was afraid of, fearful of, scared of, wondering if it's gonna work out. And then we get to a place to say, oh, I got through it. It wasn't that bad. But we forget to say, okay, if it wasn't that bad, then why am I scared or anxious? Why am I all that worrying? Because we push to anxiety to anxiety. We push from trauma to trauma. We push from pain to pain instead of being propelled and pushed forward by that which is healthy. We get pushed by negativity. So I want us to do an exercise right now. Right. Hope you're not driving. Hope you're in a place where you can sit down. But I want you to sit down. Put your feet planted on the ground. This is a mindfulness exercise. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. If you're not in a safe place, don't close your eyes. But get into a space that your feet is planted firmly on the ground. And I really want you to take a deep breath in and let it go. And then take another deep breath in and let it go. And if you think about it in that space, as you're taking that breath, you was not worried about what you've been worried about. You were not thinking about what you've been thinking about. You were just thinking about taking that breath. So now I want us to take another deep breath in. And I want you to breathe in. And as you're breathing in, I want you to think that I am loved. I am loved. And when you exhale, when you think about the exhaling and take that, release the breath. But think about that. I am not my performance. I am a child of God. So you breathe in, I am loved. You let go, I am not my performance. And it might not be your performance that's hindering you. It might be your fear. When you breathe in, I'm loved. And breathe out, I am not my fear. I am not my anxiety. I am not that child that people talked about, picked on, discarded. I am who I am. And if it wasn't for God, where would I be today? Because when you take those breaths and breathe in and let go, feel how your body is feeling. As you're connected to the ground, feel how your body is feeling that tension in your shoulders, that worry in your mind. And I imagine that as we stop this exercise, that someone picked right back up and worrying. But I want to encourage you, don't pick it back up. Don't pick it back up. Because when we learn that we have a God who's willing to supply all of our needs, why are we worried about what we don't have? If we believe that we can do all things through Christ that gives us strength, why are we afraid? I'm ready to be like David, go out there and fight whatever giant may be there, because I understand that I have God within me. And so not only is it our breathing, but it's our prayer. Like I told you, I work with hospice. I'm a hospice chaplain. So I see a lot of death. I meet people every day. And I never know if this will be the last time I will see them. But what I've learned, that when I go into a facility or go into a home, I don't take what's not mine, but I center myself as I'm going in, and I center myself as I'm coming out through prayer. Because when we pray and get to a space that we are seeking God, when we get into a place of prayer, when we know, then you start realizing, you know what? That's not mine. You ever had a phone call with your friend and they're upset and you hang up and you like, I'm upset. And someone asks you, why are you upset? You say, I'm not upset. But then you think about your last 30 minutes of conversation, you're on edge. Because too often we take from others what's not ours. We take from others that what does not belong to us. So prayer is essential. I have some friends I know, man. Every time they call, I see it. I'm gonna answer because they're my friends. But I know, Lord, let me pray, because it's gonna be some foolishness. And when I leave that phone call, let me pray, let it go. And because this is about my life. This is about the life that God has given me. This is about my family. Because again, as leaders, we think we have it all. You know, we think we wear nice suits and we think good cologne. But those negative things in life, they linger. It's like a smell. You say, Pastor, you got cologne on, you don't smell bad. No, it's a spiritual funk of tiredness. And I got church members on right now. They say, Pastor, you tired. They say, nope, you ain't going no, you going home. Because they can smell it. Even when I try to do my fakest smile, they can smell it. So that's why we center ourselves. But not only centering ourselves in prayer, we must live a life that's examined. Search me, O God, and know my heart. So we're asking, seeking God to search us, but we must be willing to look at our stuff. I know sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's painful to look at your bad habits, to look at where you messed up. I know some folk right now don't want to look at their bank account not because they're on the money, because they spent what they weren't supposed to spend. And they say, if I don't look at it, it's not there, but it's there. And so we must examine ourselves and learn, how do we, through prayer, through good exercise of breathing, and also discerning within ourselves and within others. Because now there are some friends that I don't answer when I'm not in a good space. There are some people I don't answer the phone when I'm not in a good space, because they trigger me, I trigger them. Now we all triggered. Now we, instead of giving the good news, we're giving toxic habits and toxic words and toxic behavior to the world. So we have to discern what's right and what's wrong, and also discern what's right and what's righteous. I give this example all the time. I wish I could give money to everybody that asks for money. But I've learned the habit to ask God, is this the person I need to give money? Even with family, I say, God, is this the right time to give money today? I say, God, help me. And I pray before I give, or pray before I don't. So I don't feel bad either way, because I'm talking to the Lord. Holy Spirit, lead me. But that's also in our spiritual lives and our mental lives, that we have to have a space to say, help me. Help me to live right. Help me to be my best self. Help me to discern where I'm messing up. Because we love looking for where other people are wrong and other people are off. But help me to look at myself, because I am not a victim. I am not. I am a child of God who has the power and the authority to tread some serpents and to tread life. That means I can walk over tiredness. That means I have to live in a space of peace and rest. And so if I'm breathing, if I'm discerning, if I'm examining, then I have to get into a space where I'm not just trying to be comfortable, but I'm striving. John 15 is good for me, because too often, I think I look good, smell good, but I've learned that John 15, one thing has taught me, that it is not me that produces the fruit. I'm connected to the vine. I'm connected to the vine. I'm connected to the power source. And if I'm connected to the power source, then it's not about me. You know what helped me learn that? In conversations, and it happens so many times, I'm thinking, the words I said was not good. It didn't sound good. It didn't look good. It wasn't good. And somebody called me and say, Pastor, man, that was you. You encouraged me today. I say, I didn't say what I wanted to say. I didn't do what I wanted to do, because I learned it's not how I want to perform, but it's the Spirit that moves, and it's God that moves. So when I can know that I'm connected to the source, that it's not about me. Yes, we do our homework. Yes, we grow, and yes, we study to show ourselves approved. But when we give ourselves over to God, I've learned it's not my performance, because times I think I did good, it just went flat. I ain't talking about just the life, prayer, being there, being supportive. And times I think that was just a mess. Yet God moved. And this here I say, God moved. Not Pastor McGriff, not Chaplain McGriff, no, not Alton, God. And when we can reframe ourselves, because people are gonna attack you. And they're gonna attack your mind, because what does the enemy come to do? To steal, kill, and destroy. So when we get to that space, people will attack you and try to take from you. But when we give ourselves over to God, to know that that is within us. So what can we do? I know time is coming of the essence. What can we do? The work is, I'm going to give us a few things, now I'm going to give us some things that we can do daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. But we must be willing to face our wounds, to face our pains, to face our hurt. And that's when breathing is important. That's when prayer is important. Good fellowship is important. But we also need to war against the need to be needed. Because when our identity is caught up with our need to be needed, then that means when we're not needed, then we get sad and get depressed. When things are quiet, we're not moving. But when we can be quiet and in that space of peace, it's a wonderful thing. We must understand that grief is real. And you know, one of the hardest things about grief, sometimes we grieve people who did us wrong. Sometimes we're grieving people that we didn't like or didn't like us. But it's still a loss, and still we must process and work through the grief. And then it's even harder when we grieve people that we love, that we depended on, that depended on us. So we must know that grief is real, and we can work through it and process through it and get help through it. My pastor taught me about a paid friend. And Lord, I thought he was the craziest person in the world. I said, a paid friend? That sounds like illegal. But he was talking about a therapist, y'all. He said, you pay a therapist to talk in the process. And they're better than a friend in some cases because they are professionals with professional tools to help us to grow. So I like that paid friend, because without the paid friend, I would be nuts and bonkers, more crazy than I am right now. So we have to understand that grief is real, doubt is real, but when we know that with God all things are possible, we can live in that promise and loneliness. And that's where mindfulness comes important, because a lot of times we fight loneliness in family, in church, in ministry. But when we know that our power, our identity is not based on what people say and people who are around us, then we can have power that we can be by ourselves and be okay by ourselves and working through things. So here's what I encourage you to do, and I'm gonna end with this. Here's what I encourage you to do every day. Find a good breathing exercise that works for you. You know, I like to close my eyes and picture myself on the beach, breathing as the waves come in and as the waves come out. Cause I'm a Florida boy. You know, I'm surprised I ain't got goals in my mouth right now. I'm a Florida boy, and we love the water. And so every day I try to just think about, especially on those crazy days or those bill days, that I breathe in the water. I think about, I'm sitting at the Atlantic beach right now. Waves coming in, I'm breathing in. Waves coming out, I'm breathing out. And I have to remind myself that I am loved. I have to remind myself that I am okay. I have to remind myself that I am at peace, that the stuff of life does not bother me. And so I breathe in and I breathe out. If it's in my car, I breathe in, I breathe out. If it's in the pulpit, people think, oh, he's just being so spiritual. No, I'm breathing. I'm breathing. But also, like I say, Thursdays is my day of peace and rest. Get you a Sabbath. Some of y'all be football games on Sundays. That might be restful for some, but I be like, we gonna win today. We gonna win today. Get y'all a Sabbath. I know the spiritual Sabbath on a Friday or Sunday. That's when we praise God, but we should praise God every day. Get you a day where your family knows and your friends know and your church knows that I'm resting. You know, if it's an emergency, you know, call me. Because people call me on Thursdays, you know, sometimes I answer, sometimes I respond with a text. Depends where I'm at on my Sabbath. But take time for rest, for peace. Because if you take time for studying, take time talking to folk, take time preaching, take time giving communion, take time doing this, take time doing that, take time for you and commune with God. And then, like, let's say, get that paid friend, get a a good soul friend, get that a good therapist, get a mentor, get someone that you can talk to about real life, and someone that see friends. They will encourage your foolishness, and I love them dearly. But when I need to release some things, I got to get to someone that is a professional that I can release stuff to, and legally they can't tell nobody else, nobody, because there are things that you wrestle with, and if you hold on to it, it messes you up on the inside. And then a retreat. Take time. I have folk. One thing I'm from Florida, but I'm in California, and I love about California folk. They believe in taking vacations. They believe in going somewhere. I say this is the most vacationist people in the world. They believe, and they don't be they just go. And have taught me, and my wife has taught me as well, that taking those vacations, taking those retreats, not to be busy, but sometimes just take a few days for peace, and then go and do what else you want to do. But take time, at least once a quarter, even if just go get a hotel room in your city and just look like you're not around your own stuff. And you're like, oh, I'm living like a princess right now. Take time, at least once a quarter. And I encourage pastors, leaders to take a sabbatical, even if it's just a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Take a sabbatical, take time off. I love going to retreats, and I have a problem because I go to one or two sessions that I really want to see, and then I go and rest. You say, well, you paid your money, but no, I got what I wanted, and I'm taking my sabbatical for peace and rest. So when I come back, they say, you come back on fire, because I've took time away from the business, from the performing, just to be little old Alton. So I'm telling you, every day, do some breathing exercises, some working out, something that gives you. Yoga was great for me. I used to do yoga to Yolanda Adams. Oh, me and Yolanda used to do yoga every day because the breathing and the stretching was wonderful. So, in your mindfulness exercises, take time daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and take time for sabbatical for rest and peace because you'll be better for it. Your church will be better for it. Your life will be better for it in your relationship with God. And watch how now your performance is a different kind of relationship because now it's just you being who God has called you to be and being authentic in your real self. So mindfulness is important. So don't be like me and end up on the back pew, can't go home because you're not feeling well, because you burnt yourself out. Let your light shine, but don't let it burn out. And that's my discussion for the day. Any questions, anything, any thoughts? I think you're on mute. You on mute, Dr. Bennett.
I said you had me over here doing so many praise breaks. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it depends on the friend because I know I can be real raw with some friends and they don't like it. So you got that friend that you do call that will support your foolishness, but then you have that friend that's gonna be direct with you and be like, "Go sit down somewhere."
Right. And I appreciate both of them. But I know, but I've discerned which one's which. I'm real with myself. If I want to get amped up, I know who to call.
Well, Reverend McGriff, thank you so much. I feel that you gave us a lot of nuggets that we definitely need to move forward with because a lot of us don't realize that energy transfers and we got to be careful with what type of energy we're absorbing when we're moving forward in ministry and when it comes to the people we're surrounding ourselves with. So you have a great rest of your Saturday and thank you again for being a part of the summit.